And I'd like to share for a few minutes. It's sure good to be back. I do not like sitting on my couch in my pajamas. I don't put a tie and jacket on when I sit there and watch you. But anyway, I don't like it. I'm here, Fran's here, we got the computer open, and we're watching. I don't like it. I'm sorry. You can keep watching. I want you to watch. But this is where you belong. Especially, and I said I was thinking about how I want to say this, especially during the Jewish holidays. Because this is not an individual thing. You can worship alone. You can be with God alone. I know that. But God has given the holidays to gather together, His people together. We want to worship together. And so we miss you. Enjoy the singing and dancing, but we miss you here. And this is what families are supposed to do. And believe it or not, even more so on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Now, I used to get down. Boy, I'm not even starting the message and I'm off preaching. Anyway, I used to be down on the people that just came out for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I compared them to the people who just come out in the Gentile world for Christmas and Easter. But you know something? The Jewish people that come out for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they should come out during the year, but they feel the need, especially on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, to be with God's people. And so it's good that we worship together. And so it is very, very good. Like I said, I don't like being home. I watched. I had to stay home. I didn't like it, but anyway. So it is very good to be back, and I came back as soon as I could. So I'm very, very thrilled to be here, especially on probably, it's my favorite. I know it sounds pretty sadistic or something. I don't know. It's my favorite of all the holidays to worship the Lord on Yom Kippur. I love the Seder. We have a wonderful Seder in April, and we'll start getting back to having a big Seder. And I love all the different Jewish holidays. One of my favorites, of course, is Hanukkah. But I think the most solemn, worshipful time for me is on Yom Kippur. For our Jewish people, the most important holiday is always Shabbat. The most holy holiday is tonight, from tonight till tomorrow night. The holiday of Yom Kippur. It's a solemn one, and yet it's supposed to, and it does, give hope. The last song we were just singing, one of my favorites, Save Us, O Lord, the cry of our people, save us, Lord. Throughout the ages, our people have suffered so much. Save us, Lord. Save us, O Lord. Hope was gone. Yom Kippur, hope is back. Yom Kippur should speak of hope. And so I want to share for a few minutes on Yom Kippur and the hope that we have. By the way, it just made me think, one of the songs we were singing, Shema Kolenu, Hear Our Prayer, there's a song written by Stuart Dowerman. Those of you who know Stuart, I just spoke with him recently. He's recovering from a stroke. So I want you to pray for Stuart Dowerman as he's doing well. He's in rehab and he's recovering now. But I want to speak a little bit about hope that we have on Yom Kippur, what this holiday really means. Tonight, actually tomorrow night, is the completion of what we call the 10 days of repentance, the 10 days of awe. When Jewish people for the 10 days, beginning with not Sunday a week ago, Sunday night, till tomorrow night, 10 people, when Jewish people are supposed to reflect, review their lives, review their relationship with God, review their relationship with each other for 10 days. Now, we should be doing that all the time. But this is really a special time for our Jewish people to reflect on our relationship with God. And I don't want to sound wrong, because our people should be thinking throughout the whole year, but they don't. We live any way we want, but these 10 days, we turn our attention and thoughts toward God, and we should do that. Yom Kippur, the way I used to celebrate it in the synagogue, was one special day, just one day. Rosh Hashanah last week was 2 days, and so we think about God. Now, the religious people, they pray they fast, they do good deeds. Some of them, I don't know if the people across the parking lot still, they kill chickens. And that's a Jewish custom. I don't mean it to sound funny, because it's very serious for them. Because Jewish people, it's merciful killings. They have to be able to kill an animal with one stroke so that the animal doesn't even feel it. And so Jewish people are very concerned about that. Of course, animal rights people picket them and fight against them. But there's a burden they have. The burden is to relieve them of their sin. And they're thinking, of course, in 2,000 years ago when we had a temple and we had sacrifices, God wanted them to sacrifice so the animal would take their sin and they would be set free. So there's a need for Jewish people still to think about and get rid of that sin. And so the way they do it, some of the religious people actually kill animals still, and as they think about this holiday. But the holiday should give us hope. And what I'd like us to do, if we can for a minute, is, let me see, do we have what this holiday is all about up there? No? Yes? Yeah? Okay, no. Okay, good. All right. The holiday season, good. Okay. Especially Yom Kippur, this holiday, offers us acceptance. We could add forgiveness with God, but also just not acceptance and forgiveness. It should be aware of accountability. Because God has forgiven us, because we are cleansed, because we're forgiven, we have an awesome responsibility. In life, when you have power, position, privilege, you also have a great responsibility as well. And I think I always go back to the movie Spider-Man when Spidey first got all his powers, and his uncle or his father, whoever was raising him at the time, was about to die, and he said to him, "With great power and great privilege comes great responsibility." And though today we talk about hope, cleansing, and forgiveness, we have an awesome responsibility once we realize that God has forgiven us. It's not just enough, it is enough to get to heaven to realize God forgives us, but we have a responsibility. So follow along with me. God offers atonement at this time of the year. He offers forgiveness, He offers acceptance to everybody. And in the Old Covenant, the Tanakh actually, those of you who don't know Tanakh, okay. In the Tanakh, that's a Hebrew word that stands for Torah, Nevi'im, the prophets, Ketuvim, the writings, the Psalms. That's the whole Old Testament. In the Old Testament, or the Tanakh, God offers forgiveness to Jewish people, to Israel, in the Old Covenant. That's the holiday of Yom Kippur. A lot of times when I'm sharing with Jewish people, they say to me, "You know, Larry, that's the difference between you as a believer and us. We don't talk about sin. That's something only you believers talk about." And you know, you should be quick to answer them. I said, "Well, you're wrong. Jewish people do think very, very, very much about sin. You have a whole scripture, Old Covenant, that speaks about sin causing break relationship with God. You have a whole book of the Old Covenant called Leviticus that only deals with sin. You have the Jewish holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that deal with our relationship with God and sin." So Jewish people are very, very much aware of sin, especially at this time of the year, on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Follow along with me in Leviticus chapter 17. The Bible speaks about having a right relationship with God. Leviticus 17, it says, "For the life of the flesh, your life is in the blood, and I have given it to you on the altar to make an atonement for your sins. It's the blood, by reason of the life, that makes atonement for sin." God said to our Jewish people thousands of years ago that in order to have a right relationship with me, you must sacrifice. There's a picture there. You have to sacrifice an animal. Actually, the animal sacrifice was a picture of what God was going to do for the sins of the world. But there had to be the shedding of blood. Now, on the holiday of Yom Kippur, it was very, very visible. It was a great picture of what God was going to do on the holiday of Yom Kippur. We're not going to go through it. I'll explain it in a minute. But in Leviticus chapter 16 describes And you could write it down and look at it later. Leviticus 16 describes exactly what took place, which I'll review in a minute for you, on the day of Yom Kippur. We see the review of this in the book of Hebrews, chapter 9, what took place for the Jewish people on Yom Kippur. Follow along, Hebrews chapter 9. The writer to the Hebrews, writing to Jewish believers, we're going to get into that in a minute, but he says, now even the first covenant, old law, even the first had regulations of divine worship and the earthly sanctuary. First covenant gave the Jewish people divine worship, how to have a right relationship with God. Sin broke the relationship. We had to deal with sin. And it says, for there was a tabernacle prepared. The outer one, the tabernacle, the place where God was divided into two. The outer one and the inner one. The whole tabernacle where God's presence was. The outer one, in which there was a lampstand, and there was a table of the sacred bread. The north was a table inside this room. In the north there was a table with bread of life, symbolic of God, the bread of life. There was a lampstand on the southern part that gave light to the whole tabernacle. And it said, and the sacred bread, this is called the holy place. Then there was a veil. Behind the second, there was a veil. There was a tabernacle, which is called the Holy of Holies. So, in the ancient tabernacle, there was the holy place. You had a few things, but you had the bread, you had the candelabra, the lights, and then behind the second one was the Holy of Holies, where was the ark. And it says, having a golden altar of incense and the ark of the covenant, covered on all sides with gold, in which was a golden jar holding the manna. So inside the Holy of Holies, there was an ark, and it had the manna in it. It had cherubim on there. And it says Aaron's rod, that which budded, that was in there. And the tables of the covenant, the law that God gave the Jewish people. And above it, on the two sides of this ark, was a cherub and a cherub. Cherub single, cherubim plural. And overshadowing the mercy seat. So you got an ark, and you got inside certain things. You got a cherub. On the top was the mercy seat where they got mercy. And God was dwelling in there, in that holy place. And it says, but of these things we cannot now speak. Verse 6, now when these things have been prepared, the priests are continually entering the outer tabernacle, performing the divine worship. So I'm going to trip on this, you know that? I'm going to go right down, and everyone's going to go, oh, anyway, I'm going to move it. Okay, I'll put it over here. Okay, good. Okay, I'm going down. Anyway, so you got the outer tabernacle where the priests would come in all the time. And they would change the bread on the table, and they would put incense on the altar of incense there. And they would day in and day out. But they couldn't go into the Holy of Holies. Only once a year did they go into the Holy of Holies, and that's on the holiday of Yom Kippur. And that's what this writer to the Hebrew believers is writing. He says, the outer tabernacle performing the divine worship. But into the second Holy of Holies, only the high priest enters once a year, not without blood, which he offers for himself for the sins of the people committed in ignorance. So that's Leviticus 16, and that describes it. The high priest comes into the holy place, then he goes behind the veil, and he goes to the Holy of Holies. Once a year, he's allowed to do it on this day. He would kill a bull, shed the blood, go into the Holy of Holies, and there would be the ark. On top is where you got the mercy. And the priest would sprinkle the blood 7 times for himself and the priests for forgiveness of sin on that mercy seat. Then he'd go back out, and then there was 2 goats, and they would cast lots for the goats. One was to be sacrificed, the other was to be a scapegoat to set free. He would sacrifice the one goat, take the blood, go back in to the Holy of Holies, sprinkle the blood again. This was for the sins of all the people, and their sins were forgiven. I should say their sins were covered over for another year. Only lasted for a year. And his sins would accumulate all the time. And he would go out, then they would get the scapegoat. Everything was a picture of sin. Then the scapegoat, they would put their hands on it. They would say the Al-Khait and Al-Shamnu, we have sinned, and this poor little animal is going to suffer for me, and I get set free. And they would release the goat into the wilderness. That was the picture of Yom Kippur. And that's what took place. The problem is, And the Jewish people were forgiven for another year. The problem now is there is no temple. There is no sacrifice. There are no priests. There's no high priests. What else did I write here? There's no animals. No sacrifice. But God hasn't changed his way. There still has to be a sacrifice. Forgiveness of sins. When I shared, I've shared in the past, I remember with one specific time when I was sharing with a rabbi, and we talked about all kinds of different things. I asked him at one point, after we talked for a while, I asked him, so what do you do now for forgiveness of sin? That's the bottom line. We could be a lot alike in most ways, but what do you do for forgiveness of sin? Now, I knew what he was going to answer, because any Jewish person today will answer the same. They said, well, we pray. We fast. We do good deeds. We give to charity. Or some would actually kill an animal. I say, but we have no temple anymore. You can't. Those things, God didn't change. You need to sacrifice at the temple. He says, we don't have it, so this is what we've come up with. Actually, a rabbi came up with this 2,000 years ago in the Talmud. And he said, since we don't have the temple, this is what we do for good deeds now and for atonement. But God doesn't change. You still need it. So the writer to the Hebrews, follow along with me here. The writer, Yeshua offers forgiveness to all today. 2,000 years ago it was through the temple and the Jewish people, but he offers it today. And that's what the book of Hebrews is all about. The writer to the Hebrews is writing to Jewish people who are believers in Yeshua in the first couple decades after Yeshua died. And the book of the Hebrews, you could summarize in a few words. You could say superior, better. What else did I write down here? Sometimes I got to check, okay? He summarizes with better or complete or superior, and he's summarizing it. And what he's saying in the book of Hebrews is we have something better than the animals. We have something better than that sacrifice. We have something better than the priests. We have something better than the high priests. He goes on. Where Jewish people venerated and lifted up. He says, we have someone better than the angels. We have someone better than Joshua. The book of Hebrews lifts up Joshua. And then he says, finally, we have someone better than even Moses. That's what the book of Hebrews is all about. And he says this, follow along with me in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 11. And he tells us, but when Messiah appeared as a high priest of the good things to come, he entered through the greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands. Well, he's telling us that the picture down here on heaven was just temporary, on earth was just temporary. It couldn't really do it. But the real thing was when Yeshua himself took the blood, his death, and he went into heaven, the real place, the presence of God. And he said, he went to a place not made with hands, not of this creation, and not of the blood of bulls and calves and goats and calves, but through his own blood, he entered the holy place once for all, having obtained eternal redemption. The real picture for thousands of years for our Jewish people, that was just a picture. It was a snapshot. It was temporary until the real sacrifice would come. And that's the message to our people today. They have no hope without the hope of Messiah. He goes on, for the blood of bulls and goats, the ashes of a heifer, sprinkling those who have been defiled, sanctified for the cleansing of the flesh. It did some good. The blood of bulls and goats and the ashes, it was good for a year. That's all it was intended for. It says, how much more the blood of Messiah, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without blemish to God. He will cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve a living God. Hebrews 10:10, by this will we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of the Messiah Yeshua once for all. He was the Passover lamb. He was your atonement on Yom Kippur. That's the purpose of Messiah. Our Jewish people today don't really know. You know, we always talk about Jewish people. We say we're the chosen ones. But we don't know what we're chosen for. Most Jewish people joke, we were chosen to suffer. No, we were chosen to bring forth the prophets to the world. We were chosen to bring forth the scriptures. We were chosen to bring forth the Messiah. The question is, our people don't know what the Messiah was for. The Messiah came. Our people are looking for Messiah to come and bring power and glory and rule in Israel for 1,000 years. But they don't realize the Messiah had to come the first time to suffer and die for the sins of the world. Our people miss that. And the writer to the Hebrews is telling us that's why Messiah came. Every priest, he says, stands every day, daily, ministering and offering time after time the same sacrifices, time and time again, same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. They thought it would take, it didn't take away sins. It was a hold, it was temporary. And it says, but he, having offered one sacrifice for sins for all time, sat down at the right hand of God. And it says, waiting from that time forward until his enemies would be made a footstool for his feet. For by one offering he has perfected for all time those who have been sanctified. Because of YESHUA, because of his sacrifice, our lives will never be the same. We have forgiveness. We have atonement. What God offered Israel in the past, temporary, year by year by year, he offers to all of us today because of the death of Messiah. That is what Yom Kippur is all about. But because you and I are forgiven, you and I have a great responsibility. We're not better than the rest of the world. We're the same. We're sinners just like everybody else. But God has accepted us, forgiven us, cleansed us, and sent us forth into the world to be his messengers. God has given us, he has made us ambassadors. Follow along. We now, because we are saved, because we put our trust in him, we have a responsibility, a great responsibility to our God. Responsibility grows each time with privilege and position and power. I like to think of it as a single, male or female, who's free and lives their own life and comes and goes they please. They do what they want, and they come and go. Then that single meets somebody, and they get engaged. Well, you know what happens? They're happy, they're engaged, but they lose some of their freedom, folks. They now have a responsibility to each other in that engagement period. But you know what happens after the engagement? The meeting, engagement, they fall in love, and they get married. They're so happy on that day of the wedding. But do you know what happens when they get married? They lose some freedom. Now you're responsible. You're not free like you once were. You are not. Now you're responsible to each other. With great privilege and blessing comes responsibility. But you know that couple has so much fun. Fran just was telling me, she said to me this week, remember when we were in Brooklyn and we were first married? She goes, do you remember us waking up sometime at midnight? I do. She said, let's go get something to eat. We did. We got up. We went to the diner that was open up all night. Whether we got soup or donuts or sandwich, we went. We came and go. But you know what happened? We had children. The great blessing of children. We give up some freedom, folks. People don't like it, but I tell you, you have a jail sentence for 20 years. But anyway, we're not going to go there. You give up freedom with great responsibility. With great privilege, you have a great responsibility. And so God tells us about that. Follow along with me with our responsibility. Threefold if we can. One, we are to draw near to God now. You have a relationship with him, and you are called to draw near to him daily, if you're a believer. Follow along, Hebrews 10:19. Therefore, brethren, since we have confidence to enter, now that we're saved, we have confidence to enter the holy place by the blood of YESHUA. Now, just like on Yom Kippur, they went into the ark, they went before God. Now you and I are saved. We've gone into the presence of God because of the death of Messiah. Since we have, by the blood of YESHUA, we've come by a new and living way, which he inaugurated for us through the veil, that is his flesh. And since we have a great high priest, YESHUA, over the house of God, now we have a responsibility, threefold. One, let us draw near with a sincere heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. You and I now have a responsibility to draw near to God every day. You really do. You don't have to, but you have a responsibility. He's our Father. He's in control. You need to wake up and spend time with Him and commit your day to Him. When I first became a believer in the first week, I remember God speaking to me. Didn't hear a voice, His impression. And God said to me, I want you to draw near to me every day by reading my word. I said, okay, for how long? I'll let you know when to stop. He hasn't contacted me again on that one. He wants me to draw near to Him every day. Since I'm His child, He wants me to read His word every day. I have a responsibility. Now, someone says, you wake up with that joy, you just open the Bible and you start reading? I said, no, I got to put cold water on my face. I got to put drops in my eyes. I got to do all kinds of things now until I can go down and open the Bible and start reading. But I have a responsibility, whether I want to or not. Well, someone says, if you don't want to do it, you shouldn't do it. I said, no. Be a hypocrite to your feelings. Don't do what you want. Do what you're supposed to do. Dennis Prager on the radio always said, don't tell me how you feel. Your actions prove it. We're called to draw near to God every day. The writer to the Hebrews says, since we're saved, since we can go into the Holy of Holies, since we have our forgiveness and cleansing, he said, let us draw near to God with a full assurance of faith. We now have a relationship with Him. Second, because you're saved, you have a responsibility. Second, first you draw near. Second, we are to grow strong in our faith. The writer to the Hebrews, the next verse says this. Draw near first. Second, let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for He who promised is faithful. Let us hold on to our faith. Hold on. Hold on without wavering. Be strong. There are 2 books you can look up online that you should always read. Every believer should read. Aside from the Bible every day. There's a book I remember when I first became a believer. A guy, I think his name is Paul Little. One book he wrote, Know What You Believe. I think every believer should read it. About God, angels, end times, sin, forgiveness. It's a great book. Know What You Believe. Then he wrote a second book, Know Why You Believe. It's a great book. It strengthens and exercises your faith. We need to have answers. Jewish people say, you believe in that silly virgin stuff. They say you believe in the virgin birth. Are you, forgive me, Fran, are you stupid? No, I'm not allowed to say that word. Are you ignorant? You believe in the virgin birth? And we sheepishly, yeah. Don't you know that? That's not possible. Well, of course it's not possible. We know that. But nevertheless, God predicted it in Isaiah 7:14. He says in Alma, a young woman would give birth. You believe in the deity of Messiah. Of course we believe. Know what, strengthen your faith. Do Bible studies. Read certain books. That's what the writer is telling us. Strengthen our faith. Peter puts it like this. Exercise. Exercise your faith. I just got over COVID last week. And I was walking 5 miles a day for years now, last couple of years since COVID began. Actually I started in June of 2020. And I do 5 miles a day. I exercise all the time. Headphones on, music, and I'm pumping, and I'm going. 5 miles every day, about 75 minutes. So I wasn't able to do it the last couple of weeks because I got COVID. So actually, I tried to do it this Friday. And I got to the corner. That was about it. And I came back. And so then yesterday I tried. I made a mile. Of course, I had to sleep for the next 3 hours. But you need to exercise your faith. That's what Peter tells us too. Look in 2 Peter. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 5. Now for this very reason also, applying all diligence, be anxious, diligent, quick, Encourage. In your faith, salvation, your faith, in your faith, I want you to supply something. God gives you salvation. You're going to heaven. You put your trust in Him. You're forgiven. Now Peter says, I want you to add to what God has done. That's what Peter's telling us. You can't add to your salvation. You can't go to do anything more for heaven. He says, but now that you're saved, I want you to exercise, Peter says. Build your faith up. And he says, in your faith, I want you to supply, add moral excellence. Seek to live pure, righteous lives. In your moral excellence, add knowledge, biblical knowledge. Grow in your faith. In your knowledge, self-control. Let the Spirit control your life. In your self-control, perseverance. My definition of perseverance is self-control a lot. So you want to persevere. In your perseverance, add godliness, living holy like God. In your godliness, brotherly kindness, being loving one another. In your brotherly kindness, add love. For if these qualities are yours, and they're increasing, they render you, and I like the way Peter puts it, they render you neither useless, or we could say very useful, nor unfruitful, or very fruitful, in the true knowledge of Yeshua the Messiah. For he who lacks these qualities is blind and short-sighted, having forgotten his salvation, purification from his sins. Therefore, brethren, be all the more diligent to make sure and certain of his calling and choosing you. Exercise your faith. If you're saved, you have a responsibility. Draw near. What was the second one? Grow strong. Third, encourage each other. We have a family. Look what it says in Hebrews 10, next verse. Let us consider how to stimulate each other. The word stimulate means provoke. We're humans. We know how to provoke. We do that well. We provoke. The word provoke here could be good or bad. And he says, learn how to provoke each other to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling. Our faith is an individual faith, but it's also a family. You need to come here. I'm sorry. Watch all you want. I love what you're watching us, but you need to be here. The family needs you, and you need the family. It's a family affair, folks. Oh, is it an individual? Yeah, it is. It's both. And God wants your faith to grow. He wants you to draw near. He wants you to exercise. But He wants you to encourage the believers. And one of the greatest ways of encouraging is you coming out. And look what He says, provoking each other to love and good deeds, not forsaking our assembling together. So, we're saved on Yom Kippur. We have a responsibility. Number 3, we will, because of this, give an account to God. One day, we will all give an account to Him. Yom Kippur means that we're forgiven. Yom Kippur means that we have a responsibility. Yom Kippur means you will stand before God one day, guaranteed. We will stand before Him and give an account. All of us. I remember before Fran and I got married, I had a friend in Chicago. I was at Moody Bible Institute, and we were engaged. And he and his wife gave me dinner every night. We stayed in this big place, the center, with him. And they provide for us dinner every night. And every night, as it got closer to our wedding, every night I would tell him, 100 days. And he just made a note. And I told him what I'm going to do. And he wrote everything down that I said I'm going to do for her. And he gave it to me framed for my wedding present. Anyway, but I said, next day, 99 days. 98, it never would happen. I said, it's so far off. I was going to be there one day. Guaranteed. We're going to stand before God. Guaranteed. We know for certain we will. I always tell the bar and bat mitzvah children, when they want it, well, sometimes they don't want it, but their parents say, we're going to have a bar and bat mitzvah for you. And so you know what I tell them one of the first times, although Joyce does it now mostly, but when I tell them, one of the first times I meet them, I say, I want you to picture a Saturday morning. And I said, what happens when you look up? What do you see? I say, we see you. I say, I'm standing there before hundreds of people, hundreds of eyes, and if I don't say anything, what will happen? And they look at me and go, nothing. That would be scary. That will be embarrassing. I said, well, let me tell you, you are going to be standing in front of the whole congregation soon. And they get scared. I said, it's for sure. You're going to be standing before the congregation. It's a guarantee. And we as believers, one day, we're going to go up, I believe, at the rapture, and we're going to be standing before a judgment seat. And behind the judgment seat is YESHUA, and we're going to stand before him. It's guaranteed. 2 Corinthians chapter 5. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Messiah. We will stand before him, so that each one may be recompensed for the deeds he has done in the body, according to what he has done, whether good or bad. Romans. But why do you judge your brother? Why do you regard your brother with contempt? For we will all stand before the judgment seat of God, so then each one of us will give an account to God. You will stand before him. Not only that, when you stand before him, you will answer to him. You say, well, I know I'm going to heaven. That's good. You are. If you put your trust in Messiah, you're going to heaven. But one day you're going to stand before YESHUA. And if I could take a little liberty, YESHUA is going to look at you and go, good. I died for you. You're coming to heaven. What did you do for me? Did you do anything for me? I died for you. You'll stand before him, and then he's going to, in a sense, ask you. You'll answer to him. Look what it says in Luke 19. While they were listening to these things, YESHUA went on to tell them a parable, a little story, to illustrate something. And he says, because he was near Jerusalem, and they were expecting that he was going to Jerusalem and bringing the kingdom, as they supposed the kingdom of God would appear. So he said, a nobleman went to a distant country to receive a kingdom for himself, and then return. And he called all of his 10 slaves together, and he gave them money. And it's just a story to illustrate a point. And YESHUA said, this nobleman came, got all his slaves, gave them money, and he says, now, I'm going away. Do business with this until I return. There it is. Do business with this until I come back. It's a story to illustrate. YESHUA has given you salvation. He's given you a responsibility. You're going to stand before him. He's coming back. What did you do with what I gave you? I've given you all abilities. I've given you spiritual gifts. What are you doing with them? You're going to heaven because you put your trust in him. But your rewards are based on what you're going to do for him. And he says, the citizens hated him and sent a delegation after him saying, we don't want this man to reign over us. When he returned, YESHUA was coming back. After receiving the kingdom, he ordered that the slaves to whom he had given the money be called to him so that he might know what business they had done. What did you do? Bar mitzvah boys, bar mitzvah girls, they're going to stand here. I know I did. I know Joyce does. And what did you do? The day is coming. You're going to have to say something. You're going to give an account. You're going to answer. It's guaranteed. God tells us that. And we're going to answer to God for what we've done. The bar mitzvah always do that. In school, finals are coming, folks. When you're in that class, there's only one way to get out of it: withdraw from the class, or if you don't do it within time, you're going to get a flunk. Or study, and when the finals come, finals are coming. And for us, finals are coming. YESHUA is coming back. We're going to stand before him, and we're going to have to answer to him. Lastly, because we're going to stand before him, because we're going to answer to him, we will receive rewards. We will receive rewards. You're saved, Yom Kippur. You got a responsibility. Draw near. Grow strong. Encourage the family. You will stand before him one day, guaranteed. And if you served him well, you will receive rewards. Our service for him yields rewards. Now listen, salvation is by God's grace through faith in what Yeshua did for you. You're going to heaven if you put your trust in him. And you'll make heaven. How you serve him depends on your rewards. It's nice. It'll be wonderful. Can you imagine standing before Yeshua? And he's saying, like he said of Job, you have considered Job? He's top notch. That's what you want God to say about you. You will stand before him for rewards. Look what it says, 1 Corinthians. According to the grace of God, which was given to me, Rabbi Saul's writing these words. He says, I'm like a master builder. I laid a foundation, another is building. I laid it, someone's building. We're all working for the kingdom. But each man must be careful how he builds. For no one can lay a different foundation other than the one which is laid, which is Yeshua the Messiah. He's our foundation. Now, if any man builds, works, serves, any man builds upon the foundation, that's what he wants you and I to do, build on the foundation. If anyone builds, look what he says, if anyone builds upon that foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw. He puts it all there. Gold, silver, precious stone, wood, hay, and straw. Each man's work is going to become evident. It's going to be clear. When? Judgment seat of Messiah, when you stand before him. Everything you did is going to become evident to everyone as you stand before him. He didn't miss anything. Yeah, you're saved. Good. But you're going to stand before him for how you served him. It says, it's going to become evident, for the day will show it, because it is to be revealed with fire. That doesn't mean hell. That doesn't mean eternal judgment. But God's going to judge your works, folks, how we served him. The fire itself will test the quality of each man's work. You and I at the judgment seat are going to be tested for what we did for him. Everything's going to be seen for what we did. And look what it says. If any man's work which he has built upon remains, put gold in the fire, it remains. Silver remains. Precious stones remain, sparkle. Wood. What else is there? Hay, straw. We all have a combination, folks. Some gold, silver, precious stone. Hopefully we have some of that. A lot of us have, most of us have wood, hay, and straw. It's going to go up. It's a little scary, but look what it says. If any, where was I? Okay. If any man's work which he has built upon remains, he will receive a reward. If any man's work is burned up, what's going to happen? Everything I did nothing. It's burned up. You will suffer loss, but you yourself will be saved even through the fire. Well, that's nice and assuring. We're still going, but all your rewards are burned up. Service for him will yield rewards. I really remember in high school in 10th grade when they said my school was starting a swim team. And anyone who could swim could be on the team if you could do a couple strokes. And I remember the first day for tryouts. I do remember the first day of tryouts. And no one could really swim. We did a couple strokes here and there. But I knew I could do the butterfly, about 5 strokes. And I knew I'd make the team because nobody else could do the butterfly. And so I remember that first day, we all of us, stunk. There was no one who could do anything good. We got in, but we were on the team. The team was pretty poor. But I remember one guy. When the coach said go, I remembered watching him. He went off into the air, and we all looked and watched him fly through the air. I never saw anything like it. He cut through the water like a knife. I mean, he had trained. And he started going down, and everyone else did horrible. He was amazing. And I remember in 10th grade saying, next year, 1 year from now, I want to be that guy. I want to be just like him. I want everyone else to look at me and watch me fly through the air. So I went to him, how did you do that? How did you do that? How come you're so good? I joined the swim club and I swim every day. Guess what I did? I joined the swim club, and I swam every day. Guess what happened next year? Tryouts. They all watched me fly through the air because our works yield rewards. I got rewards for that. And finally, because we got rewards, you will be honored and recognized before the Lord. Revelation 19. Let's rejoice and be glad. Give glory to God, to Him. For the marriage of the Lamb has come, and His bride, the body of believers, has made herself ready. It was given to her to clothe herself in fine linen, bright and clean. For the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. What we've done will shine. And the armies which are in heaven, clothed in fine linen, that's you and I, coming back in fine linen, rewarded, honored, respected, clean. We're following Him on white horses. It's well done. It will be recognized what you did for Him when He comes back. The Bible seems to say that we'll have fine white linens for the way we served Him. I remember in graduation at Dallas Seminary, all of us graduated. There was a nice big book with all our names, and it was hard to get through that school. 4 years, graduate level, and everyone graduating had their names there. That was nice. But you know, some of those guys there had a star next to their name. Not all. That meant they graduated with honors. Wow. You know, some others in there had 2 stars. High honors. And then there was a couple that had 3 stars. Highest honors. That's what I want with the Lord. I want not just to get rewards, but I want to be honored and glorified, in a sense, by Him, not for myself. The holiday season, especially Yom Kippur, offers all of us acceptance, but also accountability with God. Believers, you and I, you don't want to admit it, but you're going to stand before YESHUA one day. You will. And He will say, what did you do? Did you do anything for me? What you did for Him will yield rewards and recognition. And He will say, you did good. That's what we want. Believers will give an account. And God has also made acceptance available to all those who are non-believers today on the holiday of Yom Kippur. It's available to everyone. We close with these 2 verses. Acts 4:12. For those who have never put their trust in Messiah. There is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven that has been given among men by which we must be saved. It is the only way to experience forgiveness. It is the only way to experience acceptance, cleansing, forgiveness, by accepting YESHUA. John 14:6. A lot of people don't like to hear it. YESHUA said to him, to one of His disciples, I am the way. I like to add, the only way. I am the truth, the only truth. I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Yom Kippur offers us acceptance, but great responsibility. Father God, thank You for the Jewish day of Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, Day of Cleansing. We thank You for the rich meaning that's behind it, that You've forgiven us. But because of this, Lord, You want us to do something with the gift of salvation. And for those who've never put their trust in Messiah, today, may they do that. May they put their trust in Messiah and experience the forgiveness, the cleansing, the acceptance that You offer to them. We ask all these things in Yeshua's name. Amen. Hi, I'm Rabbi Larry Feldman from Shuvah Yisrael in Irvine, California. Click here on the round Shuvah logo to subscribe to our YouTube channel and never miss a Shuvah video. Todah b'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach.